and as they continue to drive, I believe they will still surge up in position because the last we saw, certain teams they're sitting out of this run inside of Miramar, so you don't have teams like Void Donkey to also challenge that statement at the very same time. So, but you gotta say it's huge improvements coming in from RQ, Sem9, and also for their debut run today, Vampire Esports as well as Kino Trove walks away with those 5 points. But massive numbers coming from our top 2 squads here. While we take a look at the rest of these extraordinary numbers, what's impressing me so far is not exactly the longest limbs, but the 14 amount of headshots that we're getting so far today.
Wow, 14 headshots. Okay. That's a number that we want to benchmark against like the other rounds. Another number that I'm interested to see is that how many eliminations. So it's 58 this time. That means there are a few other players, at least 2 of them taken out by the zone. Now with D plus Kia with the chicken dinner, they're back. 90 points in total. They are ahead of the Vikings by 32 points. But we've got to give it to the Vikings as well. 2 consistent rounds. Now they're number 2. And like what you said, right? With that kind of performance, they don't really need a chicken dinner. And they're up there.
Yeah, and after this, I believe MVKE might be taking a little bit of a short break, just like what D plus Kia has been doing as well. They're kind of stuck in the same group, so there's going to be a whole lot of BK versus MVKE, so to speak. So we'll have to keep our eyes peeled out for that as we move into our next map of the Wrangle. Now, RQ, also big victors in this round, sees them tie the knots with Nongshim Red Force. Unfortunately for Nongshim, this round they didn't walk away with any points. They crashed out rather early, and even for some of the names like or eSports, which we might have actually hoped for some big results, haven't really gotten all too much, but at least that was like 3 eliminations for them. Later on, I believe we'll be joined by A1 Esports in the upcoming match. Talon will also be playing in the upcoming round as well, if I do believe. So look at the rest. I think that Sem9, these 7-pointers, good enough for them to uphold their position. Still a lot more to be done, but it's great to see Manparan back in action.
Yeah, with old man Manpa playing in this round, 7 points, knocking on the door right now to be on page number 2 at least. So Sem9, at least a good start for them. They'll be playing the next round, so it's a chance for them to prove the level of consistency that they will bring to today. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be Group B versus Group C, and Group A, they're going to take a break. Just like us, we're going to take a short break, but do not go anywhere. See you guys after this.
Welcome back to the Ruthless Invitational Showdown as we're diving into Game 3 shortly of our second day of the playoffs. If you guys missed out, we've already got Alpha 7 and also D plus Kia to be our victors for the past two matches. Round 3, who exactly will it be? Let's find out in a short moment in time. So, Cloud, we've seen a lot of explosiveness coming from all these teams. Now we're moving back into Erangel with a switch of group. Will that actually change maybe a little bit of the tempo as some of the teams coming from Group Red, they're taking a break?
Yeah. So if you kind of think about it, right, the first two chicken dinners, both of them by Group Red. First by Alpha 7, second by D plus Kia. So Group Red, sitting out of this round, I believe that the other groups will be breathing a sigh of relief. It's like, okay, all right, guys, let's not need to face these powerhouses. Okay, let's play our own game. But whether things will slow down or not, I don't know. Because if you kind of think about it, Group Green and Group Yellow, they have their own hard hitters as well.
Yeah, arguably, I would say that there is no group that is going to be, an easy grouping. But for what it's worth, we're definitely looking at a lot of very noble names coming from Group Red. And look at these current situation. A lot of all these teams right now are playing for their pride as well as glory of their own respective region is going to put all out in this upcoming rule. They absolutely rock it hard, and they've been able to be the best out of the pack for very good reasons.
Yeah, and it was just too bad for Burmese Ghosts that time, right? Like,
Mhm.
they were always trailing, and the thing is that they find it really, really hard to score the chicken dinner. It was so difficult for Burmese Ghosts, but they were always very, very close. But at the end of the day, it's Yangon Galacticos. And also, a fun fact for maybe those who did not follow the PMCL, both Burmese Ghosts and Yangon Galacticos, these two teams, they have ex-players from Genesis eSports, the best team in Myanmar. Now, it was, of course, unfortunate that they had to disband, but the players, they found new life in these teams, and they became like the number 1 and number 2 top seeding or top place team during the PMCL. So we hope to see more of these teams coming to the PMCL in the future. But Yangon Galacticos, we have to congratulate them as well. It is the first time that this organization hits to the PMWC. So it will be a first new experience for some of the players. I say some because half of them have that experience of playing in PMGC before, but for the others, it's going to be a brand new experience to be playing at a major stage.
Yeah, I think this has been a long time coming for a lot of all these players of Yangon Galacticos, and to recall some of the very early days of PUBG mobile esports, when we take a look at YG's journey, I think way back in 2020 or even 2019. throughout the course of the year. And right now, the faithful, like I say, eventually will be rewarded. Enough talking about all these stuff while we will now focus on what's ahead of us right now in the present as we're moving into our third matchup of our evening, as we're going to be jumping into match 9. You guys are watching Ruthless Invitational Showdown Season 11. Sir Cloud, let's get this show underway.
And here is the flight into Erangel. So that's going to be the second Erangel today, but we're going to feature 2 different groups. The groups without chicken dinners yet. So surely we're going to see a new team scoring the chicken dinner this round. While the flight path makes its way for our top players, most of them are from Group A. Like D plus Kia is from the same group as the Vikings, and they are now dominating the chart. Baseland happen to be the same group as them as well. So it just shows how stacked Group A is.
It really is, and overall, when we take a look at all these names out there, like you have Longship, you have BTR, Boing Donkey, all these heavy hitters out there. As much as Boing Donkey didn't start off on the best note on one of the rounds that was played out, perhaps this is where they will revitalize, as they will have a early drop moving very far up north, while they're going to be accompanied by another squad also falling into the same direction. BTR is usually moving around that school sector, aiming to get themselves that apartment. So if they were to fend off against Group Red, you have a couple of problems when they actually face off, because names like DK will always be in around the vicinity of school. But take a look at the circle. We are getting that 50-50 split. Mainland as well as the island. APG having a decent opening, as they are the only ones in the island.
Oh, wait a second, Contra. We don't get to see this often. The team challenges Xavier inside of Pachinki. Xavier fights back. It's going to be Kindertop Gaming. Very, very bold of them to take this fight. Tamra has that advantage with the barrel, getting his knock. Now, Xavier, only one player left, 2-5-0-4. I guess they didn't expect that, because always teams give respect to Xavier and Pachinki.
Yeah, that's true, and I think like a couple of disciplinary certain altercations that does happen from time to time up against Xavier, because everybody wants the best start possible inside Pachinki. It's in the center of the field, but KN starting off in such a good note, now sees the advantage, rushes up forward. Finale could not get the finisher, and now down to OG-san. He does not really have to help. Down to 1 versus 1. 2-5-4 clutches it for Xavier.
Well, it just shows that Xavier is still the king of Pachinki. Do not challenge them in their home ground. 2-5-0-4, the mysterious player, not only pull off a clutch, but he'll be the one to save a Paragen. Xavier, Kings of Pachinki now with 2 active players. But on the overall charts, looks like E-Arena, they entered a early fight and lost 3 players.
Wow, and I believe that is towards the hands of Blue Squad overall, as they've gotten those 3 points in hand. So, as much as, us missing out some of all these advancements, I believe what really went on was maybe, those usual contests for vehicles that somehow goes wrong, or they were also doing exactly the same, just like what KN did to the Savior. So they lose out a chunk. Now, only with 1 player left, I wonder how long can he actually last out. Now, look at the rest of the field. A1 eSports. I think like they've been able to at least do decent work back in the first day. Currently sitting at number 16 at the borderline. And I think like the last they played out, they didn't exactly score as much as they intended to. So hopefully this is a recovery round for the rest of A1.
Yeah, for A1, by the edge, still all right. As long as you're in the top 16 is fine. But of course, last we checked, Sem9 is knocking on the door with a decent performance in the Mirama match. Especially with Manpa showing his experience leading the team to a top 4 in the previous round. So they're only 1 point away from A1, so they have to keep the pace up here. But
True enough.
E-Arena Joker is trying to keep the pace up for his team, knocking down Noel, finishing him off. So that's one player of GLU or Glue Squad eliminated. A bit of a revenge arc there.
Yeah, interesting enough on how they've been able to at least go eye for an eye. And Joker, he's still not really letting them off the hook. He's always tracking onto these members of Blue Squad, and at least he's got a decent compound to hold out for the moment. 4 tribes traditionally has played out around that very pier. And this is a great start for them, right? Because the last we saw, the circle was around the mainland as well as the island. So I believe all eyes are going to be at 4 tribes. How well will they actually work this one out? As majority of all these teams are still trying to figure out where exactly should they go from here on. The rest of Glue Squad right now infiltrates the compounds where Joker's currently at, and this is a very, very cheeky angle that Joker's holding out. So Glue Squad, they just gotta be very careful on where they actually step up ahead.
And Joker, the villain of his own universe, will be facing off the heroes in another universe here. This is a multiverse that we're talking about. The Blue Ranger and Yellow Ranger, Hexas, who are sharing the same compound as Joker, while Xbox, the Green Ranger, on the other side. And Hexas, together with KF, it's going to be a 2v1, but Joker, he does have a 3vs. But somehow KF, he decides not to pursue. Oh, but they found Joker. Okay, that's E-Arena out. Looks like he will be taking the last lap in the lobby.
Yeah, at least he's been able to bring 1 point back before, being closed in. So A1 eSports this time goes on chase, goes up against Kent, runs into a tiny haystack, and that stops him on his track. Sinister still carrying it forward, but he's hoping to eventually choke off some of all these positions. They're hoping to claim this farmhouse for their own, or to make it a pit stop. Hitman's going to do exactly the same. So BTR just slightly late into the scene as they kind of wanted this space for themselves. Kent right now looking for the hillside. This is the usual settlement if you do not secure that farmhouse. So I would think that BTR, this is going to be a good stronghold for them for that late game run, because last we checked, this is very well close to the center of the zone.
There's one unless though. Unless if the circle pulls all the way down to the base, then it will be something. But Sinister has sinister motives here against BTR. Long range almost got that elimination, but he failed to secure the point, so they will not be pursuing it, I guess. Unless if Sinister really wants to go for it. Okay, he really, really wants that 1 point, but by the time he arrives, that one player of BTR will be back up again.
Yeah, very risky maneuver. Sinister at least gather a little bit more intel, and he's really putting his body on the line. Damage to be done over on the side of Curian. Well, he's trying to defend himself, but he puts himself in the middle open, so that vehicle will be slowly shredded apart. Damage still being done out here. The rest of A1 needs to suppress the rest of BTR while Sinister's trying to do all that work. Can't now. Erratic sprays, hard to actually catch up against Sinister, but that's all the damage that they will be putting out for now. BTR gets to go on that reset, found themselves a solid old bunker for them to actually take cover from. So BTR feeling rather courageous to go ahead and recommit later on, but because of all those kind of back and forth, you are looking at BTR having some of these vehicles smoked up already, so rather risky. You did mention that there is a potential of that circle going back to the island, and if that's going to be the case, they got to look for alternative vehicles, and I don't think there's plenty to go around in this region.
Yeah, especially at the positions that they are at, like it's nowhere near the roads, and that's normally where the vehicles spawn. But frankly speaking, even by now, like those vehicles might be taken, if not tires punctured. We've seen that kind of strategy before. Notice on the elimination feed that Vampire Esports got on the board. So 1 elimination point for them to start off with. Now we're at stage 2. This is where I wonder, right, whether we'll see the circle go down. But Vampire Esports, what we're sure, the Yellow Ranger, Hexas, landed the shot with a shotgun. Finish him off, but look at the circle! Military base circle, let's go!
And not only is it a military base circle, look at that circle, right? There's about 40% of land available. The rest covered by water, so it's a fight for any kind ways that there is. YG looking for both by the corner pre-boss while everybody's looking to make an entry by the bridges. So 4 tries, I think that they have overwhelming numbers to deal with at this point in time, as much as they want to secure those plentiful points. I think Alpha Gaming is going to be the one that will be having some grand laughter because they're over onto that built-up bridge, hoping to actually connect a few. Seikao could not handle the jump shot coming out of the member of BPE. Ansys will secure it while Master Smile, he's not going to be going for those bridges. So he takes that boat and safely journeys his way into the island.
Oh, 7-9 took the right bridge, last I noticed, and unfortunately they got eliminated along the way. But more eliminations coming in on the feed here. APG East takes out GK from Team Secret. At Ferry Pier, it's going to be Vampire eSports, the duo that has to do it. But Talon, now we have them on screen. Looks like they were in a fight and Achul went down, but he will be picked up. He will be saved. BTR, only one player left, and it's going to be Kent. Now, just to give a little bit more clue on whether this is Federalis or not, he's always the final player for BTR back in the PMSL. So with this kind of pattern, that could be him.
Very well, good clues out there. And I think like you definitely spot all these kind of trends coming out. Zero's dangerously low, saved by the bell. And Team Secret, words for wear, trying to make their way through, already being clipped by the blue zone as they try to make their way across up against the rest of Alpha Gaming. Which close in personal down to Frank here as they're using this big clip for barely any cover. Frank goes down! And oh, Doc! He's always pulled up clutches like this time and time again. And right now, he's so far solidifying that position. He's going to go even closer up against those members of Team Secret. He does not care if he slowly bleeds out so long as he takes out Team Secret with him.
Well, that's APG for you, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the last remaining land on the main peninsula might be taken away in the next circle. We get a confirmation, and it pulls all the way down south where Young Gaidagos is at. Look at how many teams are at Ferry Pier. We have at least 3-4 teams there.
You know, the biggest winner is going to be the blue zone. By the end of that stat, I think like there's only probably 40 kills that's being claimed throughout the entire run. He's so far holding down the line, not allowing Team Secret to pass at all. And I don't think that Alpha Gaming can afford to stay far too long because there's barely enough room for them to actually hold out. A1 eSports going for the scuffle, and I believe all these teams desperate, scrambling for whatever points, and then with that grenade, he's going to slowly bleed out. He's on the last stand up against Talon, and it's not going to be enough for him to hold out.
And here comes the spray here by Hitman from the side. And Hitman living by his name, but oh, he has to be extra careful right now. He's being hit back. Lots of damage out to him. The rest of A1 is going to rush in on to Yoru from Talon. We have Sinister here in the same compound. While that's happening, Team Secret just got eliminated, number 12 with 3 elimination points. Here comes the rest of A1 to provide extra cover to Sinister. So Yoru has to be prepared to clutch this one with his S12K.
Enough space for him to work with, only the stairwells for him to hold out. I believe there's still a couple of throwables that they can work with to flush Yoru out of position. They're matching this very carefully though, as Yoru buying just about enough time. The blue zone's already coming right through. 4 tribes, they're also not looking to let them off easily, and that's one member down. Yoru doing decently so far. Still has 3 more first aids, pops 1, and quickly as it goes knocking onto the corners of the window, and we'll be able to find 1 back. But just like that, he kind of reveals his location, and that allows the rest of A1 to trade right back.
And now A1 now locked in with 4 thrives, but they do have the option of forcing themselves past the bridge, assuming that nobody's at the bridge at this point. But we'll find it out later on what their decision is going to be. But if they get the chance to secure those elimination points out of 4 tries, why not? Now Rowdy tapping away from afar, and he got his target. Docky will go down. Doesn't help that the fact that the zone is closing, and he should arrive on the 4 tries anytime soon. Here comes Pubg eSports Mastery showing himself up, taking out Parage in the final play of the Xavier, eliminating them. But they got fired back immediately.
Mastery, he goes down. He was trying to heal up, and look at how many sharp eyes there were coming from A1 eSports. Now they've been able to pave their way through. Hitman's gonna take this advantage, crashes right through the smoke and into the crosshairs of Yummy. Once again, Yummy, a masterclass performance on those CQCs. It's down to Sinister to really close in upon him. No vision whatsoever. He goes in for the white wrap. No one pulls out the S12K. He has to now bring out the M4. Yummy now seizing this opportunity, tries to go the other way around, finds the target, and now gets more points back for Pubg eSports.
Okay, so Yummy did it, but they're not out of it yet. Deathstorm is on the other side. That's a 4 first aid, so he can still tank out this blue. Yummy will finish off Sinister. Pubg eSports now at 5 elimination points, but Yummy gunned down by Rowdy. On the other side of the bridge, time for A1 to move in. The blue is just too much for them to tank.
Yeah, look at how that's for the earth. There's just 3 advantages, and you still have Zero, who's made his way across. Yummy will not be safe for sure. Pubg eSports, we're down to only 1, but at least they could play for whatever position. They're already in the top 8. Look at how many teams that has bowed out, and this is only stage 4. A1 Alpha Gaming, so far, is the biggest victor because they are the only ones that move into the island off of the first, the parachutes. So right at this moment, Alpha Gaming using that to their full advantage, going up against the rest of Boindaki. Great trades. Lazarus getting soaked a little bit. Razak gets a hold for his own, but Boindaki is only relying on their MVP right now in order to keep themselves afloat in this match.
And we got Lazarus, aka Schweppes, here together with Onzens in the middle of the circle, so they should be fine when the next circle shifts, as long as no other team crashes onto him. Rizek takes the active approach of trying to blow up the hovercraft. Although hovercraft looks very tanky, but it's actually not that tanky. It's still blowable. And there goes the hovercraft. But the good thing about the hovercraft, of course, besides it able to drive across water, it's also well protected. So that's why the hovercraft meta is well used by Claw eSports during the PMSL. But now without the hovercraft, Vampire eSports, they will need to depend on their own without the extra vehicle. Here comes Dongshin Red Force, defending the ground against APG. They got East. Doxy countered back by Zul from a distance.
Well, I never thought I'd see the day it's Doc versus Doc, but it's going to be Zio there pushing them with a grenade. Just like that, wipes out Nongshim Red Force, showing them who's the real alpha in this match. So, Doc, the other one, so far looking well and alive, and not only that, driving with 4 points under his belt, while, of course, Nongshim Red Force have only secured 3, and at least they walk away with 1 placement point at 8th spot. And Vampire eSports, happy enough to share a little bit of that space with Razak for the moment, as they're a little bit more cautious about who's over onto the far corners of the hill, because they heard some of all the engines running, and Pubg eSports doing exactly the same, as they're hoping not to be rushed by either side of the party. Decent amount of space for the rest of the East field to actually work their way through. A1 eSports by the very far corner. We'll see whether they will be able to benefit from this, but apparently not. It's actually Boindaki as well as VPE to share that space. And, well, speaking of Boindaki, that member disappeared. I believe Razak is already out.
I'll be keeping my eye on to Docs now. Observer has the same thought, as he is outside on the edge of the blue. Knocked down from afar. Now it's only Zero left, and he's kind of far away from his teammates, so to save him is going to be pretty difficult. It's going to be quite impossible for him to leave his comfort zone within the circle to go all the way out just to save Doc, putting himself in danger at the same time, so he'll have to let that one go. And Hexas confirms the elimination. The Yellow Ranger now at 3 eliminations.
So far, Glue Squad has been looking absolutely impeccable with their aggressive approach. From the early game to this point hours, they got themselves decent ground control. Zyle getting zoned out, and that grenade through the plane! I don't know How on earth did he predict that? But that is just out of this world. Through eSports, looking for a whole lot more. 7 points right now. 3 members strong. They could easily challenge for the top position. The harder spot with this amount of strength is going to be YG from the other corner, which you predict them to thrive. And thrive they are currently doing right now as they pinned out one member out of Blue Squad Xbox out of the match.
And it's going to be Smile, Mr. Clutchman for Young Radicals securing that elimination point. Young Radicals pretty chill on the southern side of the circle. A1 eSports on the west side with the high ground. But because they're by the edge of the circle, there's a big chance that circle will move away from A1. So they have to be prepared for the possibility of that to happen. But they have space in front of them to move forward anyway. Spot out the members of Young Radicals on the other side, but it's not going to be a big threat to them for now.
Just trying to see if they could just hustle around these teams over on the outskirts and then eventually pave their way into the zone. That dip right in front of them is going to be a very risky approach as they need to find a safe cover eventually. And I'm not too sure where exactly can A1 move to once that stage 5 closes up, but at the very least, stage 6 won't be closing too quickly as compared to, the final couple of zones. So A1, they could still, have a little bit of convoy working out for them. So far, leveraging onto the high ground vantage points that they are currently holding firm to. But by the time it subsides, we'll have to see what kind of major decisions do they make. Zero so far, just making sure that nobody comes into his vicinity over the north to challenge. And perhaps Zero might also need to reposition later on. So down towards what the next zone is going to offer at this point in time. Vampire eSports, I think that they're in a really great zone. All they really have to do is wait for the right opportunities to take out Mernat right here, right now.
But it's not going to be a clear shot for Schweppes from this distance. They do have the circle though, and they are by the crossroads. So they not only have the compound that defends them, but they also have that crossroad that gives them a little bit of a open gap between themselves and also Yangon Galacticos. So it's still a solid spot for them. But if any other team were to move in from the back, then they will be distracted. That could be an opening for Yangon Galacticos. But the pressure is now on the Yangon Galacticos because they don't have the circle. So all Vampire eSports needs to do right now is just to wait and see.
True enough, and at this moment, they're not going to be giving away their position to anybody out there. YG has to kind of make a deep dive into those compounds up front, and that might actually see them challenge the rest of Vampire eSports. But they're trying to see if they could flush out those members out of A1 before making it a form of entry. And that's why Schweppes has been locking into that position, because they know that if there's any position that these members of YG needs to move forward to, it's actually towards the rest of VPE. So Schweppes doing such a massive work to really keep them at bay.
And now the zone is closing. Time is ticking now for Yangon Radicals. Okay, they're deciding on where to rotate. Looks like they're going to take the east entry in, which is a smart move instead of trying to take the frontal approach against Vampire eSports. Okay, Schweppes tries to spray them down, but doesn't have a good angle. And now we welcome Yangon Radicals into the circle. What a brilliant rotation by them.
Wow, great call from Smile. He's taking the other edge, and just by doing so, I believe they spotted Blue Squad halfway through this point, and then now seeking to eliminate that Soul Ranger that's currently holding firm over onto the hangar. Look at the POV of Vampire eSports as they've been unloading a lot of all these clips, but finding nothing at all has been rather difficult. As eSports moves out to the open field, that allows Zero to get a couple of all these great angles to work up against them. So this could be pretty much advantageous, but when we take a look at his setup, it's a Groza as well as Scarel. So both weapons, high recoil, he's just got to take his time, align those shots, A1, the problem right now is that they have one vehicle blown up already. They have to rely on the Lambo in order to make their way across.
Well, pretty much they are all in the circle now, so they will figure that out in about 25 seconds when we approach stage number 7. I wonder if it's going to be a hardship or it's going to be a middle-ish circle. If it's going to go to the middle, then Vampire Esports will again have the advantage. But now shifting their attention away from Yaku Radicals, going to look down onto A1 Esports, who's across the road. So if the circle shifts towards the right, A1 will have a difficult time. You're going to get a confirmation. Looks like the circle is still kind of 50-50. The road in the middle. Vampire Esports still with the circle. And let's not forget about the Yellow Ranger Hexas from Blue Squad also in it.
Yeah, he's just going to play really sneaky. The problem right now for Vampire Esports is they're running low on resources. Look at that. Onsis only got one extra clip to work with on that Scar. And Zero, he's at least getting himself restocked with those level 3 gear. He found himself a care package on the outskirts way early on, I do believe. And he's just gonna make a deep cut right into the zone. And here comes the rival of Yagdog Galacticals. Easy does it. Takes out Hexes off the field.
And they are in the circle. After taking the position of Hexas, it's a decent spot to be in. Potentially, with the spot that they're holding, they could get stage number 8. Now on the other side, movement by A1 Esports. One player sent into the circle while Rowdy is still behind that hill. Not really in the circle, just by the edge of it. So he still has to figure out how to move slightly forward.
We know Vampire Esports so far knows that they are absolutely boxed in. The only kind of reprieve is that we're looking at YG uninterested in taking that spot because they know that there are players coming in from that direction. Yeah, YG was kind of going for that exchange when YG was on the far south. After this reposition, they're just looking to see if they could just get a better edge of the zone. And once it does confirm that they will have to breach right in the compounds, then only they will take the fight up against Vampire Esports. For now, they don't really have to force the issue. But what I would praise is that A1 Esports, despite all of that ground being lost from the high ground, they're holding firm. They're not suffering all too much of a damage as well, coming in from all the other members. And take a look at Rowdy right now. Number 4 on the elimination, securing 3 in this process, in this field. Perhaps a lot more to put up against the rest of Vampire Esports as well. We'll have to see this gridlock coming in from these 4 teams. Zero is just going to play as a thorn in the flesh. He's not spotted by anyone, and it seems like YG is also uninterested to check for the moment. So all eyes are actually on Vampires as well as A1, who's going to be unleashing whatever flurry of attack might just get clipped by a third-partying YG by the end of it all.
Yeah, it has to be A1 now with Rowdy not having the circle, so time for him to move forward. He does have his teammate as a marker, but he does not have that vehicle to follow through. So if he were to move there on foot, then he has to take a bit of risk of being gunned down. It doesn't help with the fact that Vampire Esports know that he's there. We can see that he's ready with his smoke. His one and only trusty smoke. Try to block the view of Vampire Esports and maybe make a run for it onto where Hitman or Deathstorm is at.
Just waiting for the right moments. I believe there's still plenty of all these smokes unused. So A1 could potentially blind out some of all these entry points so that they could just fend off against Vampire Esports, as speaking of which, some smokes have already been popped up as we're looking at some form of challenge coming from both ends. Treps now pushing outwards, and this might be very costly. He's already taking a lot of damage, and he does at least clip a little health bar coming from Deathstorm. YG now will take out the final remaining member of Boop Esports, so only 3 teams left on the block.
Alright, this is going to be the final moment soon. Stage number 9, no circle. That's where the zone will close entirely. So it will be interesting, right? If both A1 and YG, they crash into Vampire Esports' compound together. Then it will be a sandwich situation for Vampire. But if I were to look at A1 right now, they don't have vehicles. Both of their vehicles now heavily damaged. So the best they could do is to create this smoke bridge and try to make a run across. While, if the timing is right, YG crashes onto Vampire, at least that will create a distraction for A1 to come in.
Yeah, they're so fixated onto Vampire eSports that it allows so much room for YG to extend their position, and the more time to be bought right now by YG, they're just gonna trample over these two teams going at each other, but they have other plans. It's gonna be Shrebs getting that nade onto Romeo Boy. Master Smile right now also getting bombarded at the same time. A1 eSports, they're going prone. And how much time could they actually use right now? 2 members down from the side of YG. Vampire eSports looking to cut this one out. Bernard also spotted out, and it's still gonna be Schwabs doing a chunk of damage, but he does not outlast A1 eSports that takes the chicken dinner home.
Whoa, okay, after that distraction by Young Radicals onto Vampire eSports, A1 eSports, they timed themselves well. They came in towards the end to land the final blow onto Vampire eSports. A1 hailing from Bangladesh, ladies and gentlemen, with the chicken dinner.
Impressive work. We talked about how challenging it was. They didn't have the zone in their favor for most part, and they played their cards right. They were going prone for a little bit, and when the moment mattered most, I mean, Schweppes kind of changed his direction of where he really wants to focus on. He managed to get those 2 knocks onto YG, and that is the very reason why Vampire eSports kind of focus fire on their side and allow A1 eSports just enough space to trade back down to a 1 versus 1, and that was huge work from Rowdy.
Yeah, I would say that they overcame the odds to score the chicken dinner. The circle kept going away from Rowdy especially, and they were across the road. Right in front of them was Vampire eSports, and if Vampire eSports was not distracted by Young Radicals, they would have little to no chance of crossing that road. But thanks to Young Galacticos pushing in first, distracting Vampire eSports, and that's where they found the opportunity to move in and close up the game. Gotta give it to their timing. Their timing. They really know when to execute what to bring the chicken dinner back.
It was absolutely perfect. I mean, A1 eSports overcoming all these obstacles and getting themselves the first chicken dinner of their own suffice their standings, and I believe that this should be sufficient for them to secure a better placement into the top 16. So that's it though. VPE came super close to this one. APG, they were not within the top 4, but what they did was they were camping out those bridges. They were putting a dent onto Team Secret, onto the rest of the teams that were coming in from Milta. And by doing so, they have just gotten just about enough wiggle space to also play out a little bit of that late game. But just like that, YG, I thought YG had all the advantages, but the moment where Schweppes landed that grenade, it kind of crumbled from that point onwards.
Yeah, I thought so as well because they had the numbers, right? But A1 was the one that had the last laugh. So we're going to compare Deathstorm from A1 with East from Alpha Gaming. So East, wow, most of the stats do favor him. 4 eliminations, 889 damage, and a team contribution of 44.44%. Although they weren't in the top 3, but APG looks like they did decently well here. It's going to be interesting to see how many points they collected in this round as compared to A1.
I believe a lot of the damage was from the bridges, where I remember seeing East directly in the middle of the bridge, not even looking for cover. He's just literally raw aiming at all these teams that were driving past him. So that's it though. Rowdy has been offering clutches after clutches for so many times, and this time emerges as our MVP of the ending that we just saw in South Sanaska military base. So impeccable work rate, 55.5% contribution of what he's been able to bring back to A1 eSports.
Ooh, Rowdy! It's been a while since we've seen him up in the MVP charts. Welcome back. And besides Rowdy himself, East from APG with 4 eliminations, the Yellow Ranger from Glue Squad Hexas 4 as well, and Doc, we did see him put on a good performance on screen earlier on, also with 4 eliminations. So 2 representatives from APG. It just gives us a clue that APG could have collected a lot of eliminations to place themselves high up there. But here's a confirmation. Number 3 with 9 eliminations, bringing them 11 points in total.
Wow, there's plenty of all these teams that have been able to really farm high elimination points in this round in order to secure those double digits. Blue Squads, YG, Alpha Gaming, Vampire Esports, and of course our winners of A1 were the grand winners of it all. And we saw a lot of all that scrabble on the outskirts where teams were kind of forced to take on each other because there's just no way into the islands because 4 tribes kind of blocked it for most part over on the far west. On the east side, it was Alpha Gaming, and they managed to at least get themselves running for a lot longer compared to the rest of the field. Surprisingly enough, I expected a lot of bodies to drop outside of the zone. It's only 4 players that got claimed. So everyone was working super hard in order to secure all the points that was left in this map.
Yeah, they played their hearts out, right? And like what you said, I thought the same as well, but looks like that wasn't the case. But what the case is that Blue Squad, after a good round, now they're on page number 1, number 8, 44 points. And D Plus Kia, the Vikings, despite them not playing this round, they still hold on to number 1 and number 2 respectively. Yangon Galacticos with another good round here, now at number 4. So that's still a pretty decent run for Yangon Galacticos. No chicken dinner, no problem for them to be at the top 5. Now on page number 2, APG. We have to welcome them now into the top 16, the safe zone.
That's right. As much as we say it's safe, they take a look at the points. They're super close in terms of margins. 27 points for BTR as well as Nongchim Red Force. 28 for Vampire Esports, which we see them how they did back in day 1.
And it was just unfortunate for Sem9. They weren't able to find the level of consistency. Eliminated when they were trying to rotate on the right side bridge, so 0 points for them. They remain on page number 3. But of course, it's not end of the day for them. They still have at least 2 more rounds to go. But before we continue on, ladies and gentlemen, as usual, we'll be taking a short break. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you guys after this break. With phenomenal timing, they scored the third chicken dinner today. But coming up in the next map, we're going to reintroduce Group Red into our lineup again. The group that has two chicken dinners today, A, Alpha 7, and also D plus Kia. My name is Circla, together with Contra. Welcome back to the PUBG Mobile Ruthless Invitational Showdown Season 11. What do you make of the first half so far?
Well, the first half definitely has been super exciting with 3 different winners out of all the many rounds that we've seen. And A1, of course, gave us a shock factor by the end of the run, because a lot of all that feistiness was coming in from both YG as well as Vampire Esports, and A1 was the one to get the final say. Now, quickly as we get a glimpse of the teams in Group Red and Green, I think I've had a hunch of who I'm voting for next already. So we talk about the stacked numbers of players that are ultra talented, and MVKE. Now that they're back in action with a little bit of break, I'm still hoping that there is a lot of juice those crazy numbers with sometimes even close to 20 eliminations, and that is definitely those kind of possibilities when we look at a squad like Alter Ego. But of course, I'm not fully convinced just yet. Maybe not today. Tomorrow might just be the case coming in for Alter Ego. I mean, there's still a couple more runs to go, so who knows? We're not the experts. Well, we're semi-experts. We're not the expert predictors just yet, because so many of these seasons, they've been able to best us. I'm just looking for my first point. I guess we both came pretty close on that prediction.
Yeah. I came close with D plus Kia because match 1 I predicted them, but they scored in match 2. And in match 3, I picked Younger Gaticos. They got 3rd place, so that was close enough. But you know what? To be fair, no chicken dinner yet on the prediction. That's okay. We still have more games to come, right? So interesting picks here, I must say. Very large dynamics from what I see here from our prediction test here, including from our experts. So it could be anyone's game. I mean, predicting is never easy. We're talking about finding out one team out of 16 amazing teams. It's just so hard.
It is rather difficult. I mean, we take a look at both our picks, right? Horror Esports, when they were playing, that run, having only 2 members to still secure top 3 and double-digit eliminations, wildest. And on these upcoming rounds that even moving into Miramar, I think Horror Esports did decently at the very same time. Now, look at the rest of MVKE. I think like who was the most impressive team?
Oh, thanks to the stats. This will kind of guide us. Yeah. That came at the right timing though, but this is only for match 9 Erangel. So Rowdy as our MVP, 5 eliminations, and then we had East with 4 eliminations, Hexas, the Yellow Ranger, 4 as well, and Doc with 4. So 2 players from APG up here on the board. But if we were to talk across the entire board, who impressed the most? Well, to me, it's Superman from MVKE. I mean, this guy came up with a clutch, held on to a second place finish, and then in the second game where we saw him play, he's still able to bring in the elimination. So overall, throughout the day, Superman to me has been the most impressive.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. If it's not him, I would go with No Fear. Coming closely on my top 3 would be Sleepy at the very same time. Horror esports players somehow gets to our hearts in one way, shape, or form. But damage numbers wise, look at how close it is between number 1 and number 2 in that last round. East 889 damage, 873 for Rowdy, who's clutching it in order to secure the chicken dinner, and also provided with some help coming from Deathstorm. Onsens was always on the tail of so many of all these players out there. So at least we get a little bit more of that confirmation that, some of all these mix-up names that we see on, some of the VPA members, Onsens is also out there. So that being said, we're going to be seeing whether if Vampire Esports can also shake things up a little bit more. How many different hearts do you have prepared out there on your screen? I kind of wish I had that kind of prot level brain for me to also do this in between, because that was quick, my guy. You just like have 100 tabs open inside.
Well, that's not too hard to do. That's not too hard to do. Not too hard to do. Yeah. I mean, of course, I'm trying to give my support here, right, to the Purple Hearts, because it's in my prediction. It would be nice to get a correct prediction on our first day of casting for this season. So come on, bring out the ball, bring out the ball. But of course, one thing about Horror Esports is that they happen to be in Group Red, and Group A Red has the most heavy hitters of them all. So that's going to be a big challenge. And
True
speaking
enough.
about challenge, since we're heading on to Mirama next, so here's some stats to kind of guide us on who might score the chicken dinner.
Oh, I absolutely love the stats. And so far, the top performer for Miramar has to be D plus Kia. The last they wanted was literally in this map itself. And now that they're back, they're definitely a very scary bunch to deal with. YG is definitely one that we predicted to also have a decent run, as they have the highest survival time out of the many. And look at Boing Donkey as well as 4 Tribes. Despite them not really having the biggest showing today, yesterday's run, this are some of the biggest results that they've been able to pull through. And this could be the case where Boing Donkey, they had enough of scoring only single digits. They want to show up big once more in order to chase up against D plus Kia. And Boing Donkey so far isn't exactly sitting comfortably so far.
Yeah, Boing Donkey, well, they need to be a little bit more consistent. I mean, we did see them putting a decent performance, right? So consistency has to be the key. Now, one strength of Boing Donkey that we have seen them perform in the official tournaments is that they are a very smart team, and they have the capability to survive. They know when to take what kind of fights. So I guess that's expected by some of the fans of Boing Donkey as well, that they should be able to live up to what they have portrayed on the international stages of a official tournament. But so far, they have not scored their chicken dinner yet. But again, if
for the moment. So we're talking a lot about some of our heavy favorites for esports